TransPennine Express introduced the Nova fleet in 2019 to replace its elderly rolling stock and enhance capacity on its network. Fast forward 4 years later, and the Nova 3 member of the fleet is being completely withdrawn in favour of the stock they intended to replace. The one question that's on everyone's mind, including yours I bet, is why? To answer this question, I'll be taking a look at these trains in detail whilst explaining the rationale behind this bizarre decision. To do this, I'll be starting from where the train does, Scarborough on the North Yorkshire coast. The beautiful seaside town of Scarborough is a popular holiday destination for locals, and the station is managed by TransPennine Express, our operator today. The outside building is Grade 2 listed and dates back to the station's opening in 1845. There isn't particularly much going on inside, though there is a waiting room and some shops to prepare you for your onward journey. Though reaching the platforms, there are works going on as part of the £6.6 million project to redevelop the station. Awaiting departure is one of TransPennine Express's Class 185 Desiro trains, which have been the workhorse of the franchise's network since 2006. The Nova fleet was originally planned to replace 22 of the 51 units. However, factors such as the TransPennine route upgrade and the recent announcement regarding the Nova 3 fleet have meant that all 51 are now being retained by the operator for the foreseeable future. All TPE services from Scarborough used to reach Liverpool, but since the COVID-19 pandemic, it would be lucky for a TransPennine service to even reach Leeds, as most Scarborough services have been reduced to shuttles to and from York, as the 185 is seen working here. Northern also operate roughly hourly services to Bridlington, Hull and Sheffield via the Yorkshire coastline, with a lesser seen Class 155 train reaching the end of its journey here. It isn't much longer until our train pulls in, but of course I can't forget to mention that it pulls in next to the world's longest railway bench, just to the right. The loud noise you can hear is from a Class 68 locomotive, built by Vossloh, later Stadler, between 2015 and 2017, hauling a set of 5 CAF Mark 5A carriages, an Intercity version of the Caledonian Sleeper Mark 5s, which I reviewed previously on the channel. 14 sets of these coaches were built between 2017 and 2019, with one set acting as a spare, and as with their Caledonian Sleeper counterparts, have been beset with multiple technical problems since day one, including cracks recently appearing on the underframes, though this isn't the reason as to why the sets are being withdrawn, which I'll delve into later on. Each Nova 3 set is powered by a dedicated pool of Class 68 locomotives, subleased from DRS, and at the other end is an unpowered driving trailer from which the train can be driven in a push-pull formation, removing the need for the locomotive to swap ends. Each set is of course in the stunning stained glass livery used by TPE since 2016. What do you think of it? Another nice feature is that each Class 68 used to power the Nova 3 sets is named, this particular one being named Achilles. Whilst most services terminate at York, our service is one of the few going all the way to Manchester this morning. I'll be in first class, which is at the rear carriage closest to the Class 68 locomotive. Stepping onto the train, it's amazing how new the trains smell. Bear in mind that out of the 14 sets, only 4 have been in regular service since introduced 4 years ago. First class is in a 2x1 seating configuration and makes up one of the 5 carriages on board. Our route will see us run through North Yorkshire towards York, calling at Seamer and Malton, where we then go on to make calls at the major West Yorkshire cities of Leeds and Huddersfield, before crossing the Pennines to eventually reach Manchester Piccadilly at 11 AM UK time. Right, let's take one last ride, possibly, of these brand new Nova 3s, so sit back and enjoy the ride. Amazingly for a TransPennine Express service, we depart Scarborough on time at 8:48 UK time. As we leave, we have a partial view of the many residences next to the station. The Nova 3s are despised by the locals due to the loud noises the Class 68s give off while stationary, which has resulted in numerous complaints since their introduction. But why would you live next to a railway and also complain about the noise, eh? Stabling and light maintenance of the Nova 3s and 185s is done at Scarborough Train Maintenance Depot, a few miles west from the station itself. Principal maintenance for the Nova 3s is done at both York and Manchester. Here we can see several Nova 3 sets on standby awaiting their next duties. Just over 5 minutes later, our first calling point is Seamer, the previous location of the Mesolithic Age settlement of Star Car, and another 15 minutes of travel time sees us call up Moulton, described as the food capital of Yorkshire and is often referred to as the UK's dog-friendliest town, making it a popular staycation spot for dog owners. Okay, so how about the features of the Nova 3? Surely they can't be too bad, right? Well, they aren't really. The first class seats are pretty comfortable, dare I say much more than those on the Nova 1s, as if that's much of an achievement. Each seat features foldable armrests on both sides, with the one on the window side containing a UK power and USB Type-A socket. Each carriage has seat reservation indicators, though there are card holders on the top of the seats too in the event the reservation system goes down. The seats recline, operated by this button here, whilst at the same time sliding your body forwards and backwards, aids the perfectly acceptable legroom, though bear in mind all seats in the Nova 3 first class are table seats, though no one sat opposite me for the entire trip, so this wasn't too much of an issue. The passenger information screens are jam-packed full of useful information whilst travelling, such as the carriage letter, the route map, the calling points of each station, as well as the expected arrival time and the current time alongside a Nova 1 train. Again, more on this later. The table lamp here adds to the overall ambience of the interior, as do the overhead reading lights, and finally, there's a window blind in case you want to reduce the sunlight or get some rest. A well-designed interior, right? Just a shame it can't be experienced for much longer on TransPennine Express routes. So, why are the Nova 3s being withdrawn? Well, TransPennine Express's previous operator, First Group, had a huge training backlog on the sets since their entry to service in summer 2019, which then subsequently increased due to the COVID-19 pandemic. An attempt to resolve this saw the sets also begin work on the South TransPennine route between Cleethorpes and Liverpool. However, the use of these sets there was again short-lived. Following the Department for Transport's takeover of TPE due to First's poor performance, the Nova 3s were removed from the South TransPennine route after 7 months of infrequent use on the line, with focus instead diverted solely on the Scarborough route, and instead of addressing the training backlog, it was announced a few months later that the sets would be completely withdrawn from the operator. Crazy, right? Crossing the River Ouse sees us join Britain's East Coast main line as we arrive into York, a city with many deep ties and history associated with Britain's railways. The Class 185 from earlier also makes an appearance, preparing to work the shuttle back to Scarborough. To the right, as that cross-country Voyager passes, we can see the observation deck from the famous National Railway Museum, which I've always enjoyed visiting since I was a kid, especially with its more recent additions. I've mainly seen these sets doing shuttles between here and Scarborough, so to actually be travelling on one beyond York was definitely a weird experience. Oh, and do check out the Costa Coffee here if you ever get a moment. It's actually located inside the former station signal box. Oh, and a quick reminder to subscribe to me if you haven't already, for more weekly content such as this. It's free and the best way to support my work. Thanks! We only used the East Coast main line briefly. Here we can be seen diverging off of the line onto the branch towards Leeds and beyond. The line here was recently electrified as far as Church Fenton, as part of the TransPennine route upgrade works. The Nova 1 train's TPE use a bi-mode, and this enables the power change from diesel to electric to be done whilst the train is in motion. Will the rest of the line to Leeds be electrified? Only time will tell. This part of the route also allows the Nova 3 sets to reach close to their top certified speed of 100 miles per hour, though I'd argue the ride quality isn't particularly amazing at these speeds, especially when compared to the older Class 185s these trains were intended to replace on the Scarborough and Saltburn routes. I've already shown you first class, so here's standard class on the Nova 3 sets. This is in a 2x2 seating configuration and appears to feature mostly table seats, though you will find some airline seats towards both ends of the carriage. Also, if you're a solo traveller in standard class, you'll more than likely be aiming for one of the solo seats at the end of each carriage. When commissioning the new Nova fleet, TransPennine Express under first opted for a common seating layout across the fleet, the only difference being first class on the Nova 1s, though I invite you to check out my video on this train if you want to see for yourself. The Mark 5s definitely allow for better bike storage than the 185s, principally due to them being 5 carriages rather than 3. Honestly, the extra capacity they bring is completely wasted by TransPennine Express, and this is an operator that frequently suffers chronic overcrowding and poor reliability. Unlike other elderly UK loco-hauled stock, the driving trailer has seats and is the same standard class layout as the other 3 carriages. Catering is provided on this service beyond York by a dedicated trolley host, and as I'm in first class, I have several snacks provided as included in my ticket price. There's a dedicated space for the host at the rear of the train, closest to the locomotive. I was offered a lemon drizzle cake, a Lotus Biscoff pear, and a cup of orange juice. It's not much, but it's better than nothing considering my ticket costs, but more on that later. To the right is Leeds' Neville Hill depot, located a few miles east of the city itself. Northern took over management of the depot from East Midlands Railway in 2021, after the latter retired its HSTs. LNER now performs light maintenance and stabling of its Azuma fleet here too, as well as heavy maintenance on its Intercity 225 fleet. Both of these trains will be coming to the channel soon. In fact, I'm surprised I've not actually covered anything on LNER here before. We now arrive into Leeds itself, the largest city in West Yorkshire and the UK's 3rd busiest station outside of London. This station acts as a hub for TransPennine Express services along the North TransPennine route, as well as providing an interchange for northern services across the north of England and LNER and cross-country services for those wanting to go further afield to the Midlands and the south. Some Scarborough services are timetabled to terminate here, again another inconsistency in TransPennine Express's service pattern on the route. Leaving Leeds sees us move on to the core TransPennine route through to Manchester. The line is due to be upgraded over the coming years, including electrification taking place between Leeds and Manchester, which is an advantage of the Nova 3s in that the Class 68s would have been replaced with an electric or bi-mode locomotive, without the need to replace the Mark 5 coaches, making the latter very versatile. Morley Station is a prime example of the work already being done as part of the TransPennine route upgrade, having been completely rebuilt to accommodate longer trains and improve accessibility. Our next stop is Dewsbury, the largest town in West Yorkshire's heavy woolen district, following a major period of growth in the 19th century. Most TransPennine Express services on the North TransPennine route stop here, with the exception of the Liverpool to Newcastle runs. Something I did forget to mention as well is that the first class carriage has an accessible toilet present. Weirdly enough, the only one on the train. The rest are all standard toilets. Nevertheless, I did find it clean. You know, minus the tap water and toilet paper bits on the floor. And there were plenty of amenities available too, such as the baby changing facilities. Everything works well as it should too, so I can't really say it has any major issues. Thumbs up! Our next stop and last calling point before crossing the Pennines into Greater Manchester is Huddersfield, West Yorkshire's 2nd busiest station. You may also recognise one of Northern's former dreaded pacer trains in Platform 1, which will see future use in the station as an educational kitchen. Making our way out of Huddersfield sees us continue along the Yorkshire side of the Pennines towards one of the 4 Stanwich tunnels, this one being the longest of the tunnels on this trip directly towards the northwest, at over 3 miles in length. 2 of the other parallel tunnels with the same name link 2 disused parts of the Huddersfield line, with the final one being a canal tunnel. Now in Greater Manchester, we reach our final stop of Staley Bridge, which is a good time to conclude. Minus the less than desirable ride quality and standard class seats, I don't really think these trains are too bad and are certainly a huge capacity increase compared to the 185s. As for the future of these brand new Nova 3s, they'll be withdrawn at the December timetable change next week, with the locomotives returning to DRS and the coaches being placed in storage, pending further use elsewhere or disposal, as part of an attempt by the Department for Transport to make TPE less complex, by completely eliminating the training backlog. Replacing these trains involves the 3-car Class 185 fleet being stretched out even further, whilst at the same time using the existing Nova 1 fleet and further reducing the timetable, which is an absolute waste and a huge step backward for rail travel in the north. The nationalisation of TransPennine Express was a good chance to turn the page and get crews trained on the sets, but of course the easy way out was taken, and remember, these trains are only 4 years old. At my ticket price, I booked directly through TPE's website 5 days in advance, spending £27.25 for my advanced first class single, including my 16 to 25 railcard discount of a third. Not bad. Anyway, as is typical for TransPennine Express these days, we arrive into Manchester Piccadilly, delayed at 6 minutes late. As always, I want to hear from you now. Have you rode the Nova 3 sets before? Do you intend to ride them before they're withdrawn? Let me know below in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed the video today, and if you did, don't forget to like and share the video, as well as subscribe to the channel for more videos like this every week. It's time to kill some time in Manchester now, before my next trip, but I'll leave you with the departure of the Nova 3 set returning to Scarborough. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.